Hey folks, it's Mr. Fly here. Do hope you're well, and welcome aboard the brand new for 2021 BMW R1250 RT once again. A bike that I've borrowed for the last week, and I've been getting to know her, and in this video I'm going to give you the pros and cons of the bikes, all the lessons I've learnt about the bike since I've had it. So if you're interested in the new RT, stick around, stay tuned, this video's for you. So the brand new BMW R1250 RT then, what a machine. It's BMW's full dress tourer, or one of them. Of course they also make the big 6-cylinder K1600 machine, but this one is their boxer based variant. And as I said, I've been riding this for the last week, so I've been getting to know her a little bit, and in this video I'm going to bring you all the pros and cons of the bike, not just the good things but the little niggles about the bike as well. Now if you haven't seen my first ride review of the bike, I do recommend you go back and have a look at that, because that's more of a standard review where I go through the specification, tell you what the bike's like to ride, take you through some of the features and functions, that sort of thing. This video is purely going to be about my lessons learned. So without further ado, let's crack on with the cons. What are the not so good things about the RT? Okay, so one area where I think BMW have maybe missed a trick on the new RT is with the sat-nav. Now, as I said before, a lot of players have been put on the big old TFT on here, which is lovely to look at. But one of the things that BMW said at the launch of the bike was that that had built-in sat-nav, or at least it did if you connected to your phone via an app, and that's what I don't like about it. The fact that you have to connect your phone to it. So there's an app, it looks like this. Hopefully you can maybe see that a bit on my phone. You just pair it up. It's easy enough to pair up with your phone, and then that means you can actually have the sat-nav built into the bike, and it looks a bit like this. Here we go, you can see at the moment, I don't know if you can see, it just says High Wycombe and North. That's the way I'm pointing at the moment, because I don't actually have a route in. If you want actual maps on there, you have to download those two phones, so it takes up memory, so you have to do that beforehand. I have actually downloaded the latest map, so goodness knows why they're not actually showing on there. Maybe that only comes up when you do a planned route, I don't know. But I just think they missed a trick there, that you have to use an app to get the navigation to work. Of course it's better than nothing, and some people might like that, but I personally don't find connecting the phone up that straightforward. I didn't find the whole thing that intuitive. I mean, it is working at least. I've tried it on many other bikes where it hasn't worked, so fair enough there, but I just think if it was built in native with a sat-nav, that would have been better. On my GS, for example, I have that separate navigation device, which means I don't have to faff about. I just switch it on, and I've got my navigation there. I don't have to worry about having my phone charged up, whether it's connected via Wi-Fi, Bluetooth or whatever. But yeah, there you go. So it's got the navigation, it's just you have to use an app, and I don't like that. Thumbs down. So something that has had a lot of plaudits on this bike is the big TFT, and we'll talk more about that later. And what that means is BMW can bear an awful lot of functionality in there, and one of the things I don't like about the bike is the fact, although you've got all sorts of features and functions on here, some of them can be a bit of a pain to get at, particularly ones you might need to use often. What am I referring to? Well, things like the heated grips and the heated seat on here. If you want to switch those on, you have to go through the menus on the TFT to get them. There's no actual physical button. On my GS, there's a button for the heated grips just on the right hand handlebar here. Hello sir. And so you just turn them on, off you go. If I want to turn the heated grips on here, I have to go down a bit. There we go. And then I have to go across to vehicle settings. If I can just do that while I'm moving. Here we go. Round we go, up to settings. And then I have to go into the settings. And then I have to scroll down to heating. I then have to go across in heating. There we are, grip heating. And then I go into it, and then I can turn them on. Okay, now they're on. Crikey. And then I've obviously got to get out of all that again then, so it's back up, back across, and then back to where I was. So what a faff, just to turn my heated grips on. How many button presses was that? I don't know, maybe a dozen by the time I got there and back. So that is just a bit of a pain for me. I mean, I love the fact that it's got lots of functionality, but it's a faff to get things that should just have a button. And it's the same for the seat as well, the heated seat. You have to do all the same sort of rigmarole. So yeah, not too keen on that. Okay, next up, and this is very much, I know, a personal gripe, and it may not apply to you. It's very much a matter of personal taste, but that is the looks of the bike. Does it work for you? Now, they have restyled this front end since the last version of the RT, and I think it is an improvement. It's got a bit of a sort of a raptorish look to me, of dinosaur type, I don't know whether it works or not. I think it is an improvement, but overall I just don't think the looks of the bike quite work for me. I'm still finding that front end a little bit too bulbous for my liking. What do you think? Something that may surprise you if you've never ridden an RT before, and all RTs have been like this in the past, it's not just the new one that suffers from this, is the fact that when you jump on, it feels like it's a relatively sporty riding position. Your legs are quite tucked up on this bike. Let me just stop here and show you. The pegs are quite high up, look, and look at this angle of my leg here. It's quite a sporty position. So if you're getting the RT because you want some comfort, and don't get me wrong, it's a very comfortable bike, you might be surprised that the lower half of your body, there's not an awful lot of room there to stretch out. So just be aware of that. That's something I'm not so keen on the RT. Blimey, I'm so going to get rained on in a minute. Check out these black clouds around here. Anyway, so another thing that I don't like about the new RT, and this one for me is a big and important one, is the fact that it's a big bike, but that's not so much the problem. But it's actually living with it, moving it around in your garage. It is a heavy old beast to move around. I mean, it has got the plus that it's got the low centre of gravity of the boxer engine, but even despite that, I still find this much harder to move around than I do, for example, my GS. Now, I don't know if that's because it's a slightly lower bike and therefore I've got a bit less leverage. I don't have quite so much problem moving my GS around, but getting this in and out of the garage, moving it about, shifting bikes around, I find this is a heavy old lady to move about, and that's from somebody that not only owns a GS but a Goldwing too. So for me, that's a really important downside of the bike. It just feels heavy to move around. It's fine when you're riding it, but physically moving it around, it's a heavy old beast. All right, enough of all the negativity then. So there's a few things I've found out that maybe aren't quite to my liking on the bike, but what do I like about the machine? What are the pros on this bike? Let's go through the positive things that I've learnt about the RT. Something I do love about these big touring bikes, and the RT is no exception, is just the level of weather protection you got on these. I've just come through a storm, as you can probably see. I'm on the tail end of it now. I put the windscreen up into its uppermost spot, and it's keeping all the wind and all the rain off of me, or most of it anyway. And I absolutely love that about the RT. The screen on here is gargantuan, as you can see, and although in this uppermost position it means I'm looking through it, which I don't much like, it does mean I am protected. If I stick her down now, the wind and rain is easing off, rather, the rain. Let's put that down, that button. There we go. I'm getting much more wind blast now, which you might be able to hear through the helmet, but you know, the lower half of me and up to my shoulders, I'm completely again in my famous bubble of calm, and I absolutely love that about the RT. The wind and weather protection is excellent. Something else in my list of loves for the new RT, and in fact this has been in my list of loves for all RTs I've ridden, which has been I think 2 previous models, and that is just the comfort you get on board these things. Now, of course, these bikes are all about comfort, and when I went through my cons list, I did complain a little bit about the legs being tucked up, and that doesn't mean to say it's uncomfortable. It's just, it might have surprised you, it's not as roomy as you might think. But I actually find the legs being tucked up is fairly comfortable. It doesn't stop you riding for great distances for great lengths of time on the bike. But the other things that make it comfortable are just the seat on here. The padding is amazing. Super soft. The suspension is lovely. Oh, and whilst we're on the subject of the seat as well, it's got that heated seat, and you may think to yourself, well, I don't actually need a heated seat on a bike. I've never thought, you know, my backside is cold when I'm riding a motorcycle, but that's not the point. If it is cold weather and you start to get cold, having a heated seat means that your core can get warm, and that means your whole body gets warm. I'm a massive fan of heated seats. I never thought I needed one either, and then I tried one in cold weather and it was brilliant. So yeah, comfort on this bike is top notch. Stuff like the weather protection, the seat, the fact that it's heated, the fact that you've got heated grips, of course, all that stuff adds up to a lovely riding experience, just as the bike is designed for. You could sit on here for mile after mile, hour after hour, and do great distances in extreme comfort, and I love that about the bike. Something I definitely love about this bike is what I sometimes refer to as the funny BMW front end. This has got what BMW call their telelever front suspension. That effectively means there's a wishbone. That's what I was showing you before. Let me have a look, see if you can see it there. See here, that's actually a wishbone near that steering damper, and it means that the forks themselves aren't directly attached to the suspension in the way that they are on a normal forked motorcycle. Some people complain that that makes these bikes feel a little bit vague, a little bit disconnected from the road, but I don't find that so much. I find that it makes for a very comfortable ride, and for me the big plus is when you brake hard, there's no dive on the front of the bike. So having that telelever front end means there's no dive, no need for anti-dive systems, things like that. The bike is just stable when you brake, and I really love that about the RT. Something else that I've been surprised that I really have loved about the bike is something that's brand new for the 2021 RT, something that we're starting to see appear on some high-end bikes like Multistrada and the KTM Super Adventure, and that is the adaptive radar controlled cruise control on these bikes. I presume it's all pretty much the same stuff. I think it's made by Bosch. There's a radar detector in the nose of the bike. It can detect how far ahead the car is in front when you've got the cruise control on, and it can match your speed to it. When I did my initial impressions review, go back and check that out if you haven't seen that, because I actually show you the cruise control in operation there. Obviously I can't show it to you here on this twisty road with no cars in front of me, but the reason why it surprised me is because I'm not in general a big fan of gadgets, and I just didn't think that would be something I needed. But now, having used it and seeing how well it works, it's something I can entirely see if you're on a long drive, I don't know, maybe on the continent, going on your annual motorbike tour or something. I can see how that adaptive cruise control would be a really useful thing, just to add to the relaxed nature of the ride on the RT. So that's another thing I love about the new bike. Something that has surprised me a little bit about the bike, and I suppose it shouldn't do really, because I've ridden many big bikes before, but that's just the handling on here. On roads like this, big sweeping A roads, the handling is absolutely beautiful. I don't know if it's because it's got a lot of weight, and that is obviously planted through the tyres, and that means it gives you great stability. But on bikes like this, you come up to corners like this, you just set where you want it to lean, and around it goes as stable as you like. It just feels right. Now, by saying it's stable as you like, I'm not saying that it feels stodgy or heavy when you're cornering on it. Far from it. It actually feels quite light and agile once you're moving. The handling on the bike is just beautiful. I put that down partly to the boxer engine and its position low down, giving it a nice low centre of gravity. It never ceases to amaze me how good the handling is on the RT. Really, really nice. I love that about the bike. So I couldn't possibly go through a list of my pros and cons of the new RT without talking about this gargantuan TFT on here. Now, I've already said that they missed a bit of a trick with the sat-nav and not having it built in native, but just forgetting that for a moment, just look at the size of this thing. 10¼ inches I think it is. It is a beautiful TFT. BMW are the masters of TFTs. Now, generally speaking, I'm not a huge fan of TFTs on motorcycles. I'd rather have dials, but if you're going to have a TFT, have a BMW one, because they really do make them clear, and they do clever stuff with them as well. Just things like the fact that the rev limit goes up as the bike warms up. Stuff like that I really like. Now, on the RT, because you've got such a lot of real estate, they can put a lot of information on the TFT at once. As you can see here, I've got all the usual stuff that you'd have on a normal BMW TFT on the left hand side here, the sort of things you might see on an S1000RR or a BMW GS. But on the right, I can have this split screen affair. I can have all the trip computer information, as well as a whole host of other stuff if I want to. So yeah, some people I've heard say it looks like a big iPad just stuck there in front of you. Others think it looks cool, like you might find in a Tesla, say. I'm not sure whether I love it or not. I can't help but thinking I like a hybrid where you've got dials and a TFT, like they do, for example, on the new Hayabusa, or indeed on my Honda Goldwing. I think that's the best possible combo. But if you're going to do pure TFT, this is the way to go. It's the best TFT I've seen on a bike so far. It's massive, it's clear, I love it. Okay, so those are the pros and cons of the bike that I've identified, at least the key ones. They're in no particular order, and you may agree or disagree with them. I'd be interested to hear in your comments below whether you think I've got that right or wrong, if you've ridden the new RT, or indeed if you own one. What else? What have I missed about the bike? Unfortunately, I haven't been able to ride the RT as much as I would have liked to have done. I've had it, as I say, for the last week. Normally these longer term loans are a bit longer than that. Unfortunately, because this bike is in great demand, I was only able to get it for a week, and I was actually away for a few days during that week, so I've not been able to bring you the normal in-depth review, which is why I've given you these pros and cons in a sort of a separate video like this. But hopefully that's given you a bit of insight into the things that I like and dislike about the bike. I mean, my overall abiding memories of this bike, it's a beautiful machine. I mean, there's very little not to like about this bike. It is quite expensive. I mean, I think the list price on the BMW website is something like 14 grand. By the time you spec it up though, you're realistically going to be looking more like closer to 20, which is a big chunk of cash for a motorcycle, isn't it? But if you're serious about your touring, maybe if you're a two-up person, then this is definitely one of those bikes worth considering. I know what a lot of people are going to be thinking and asking, because they know I ride a Goldwing. Do I prefer this to the Goldwing? Well, frankly, no, I don't. Given, you know, money no object, then I'd take the Goldwing. The engine on that is sublime. The comfort is a little bit more, extremely so, if you like, on the Goldwing. It's got everything this has got, plus a bit more, if you like. Plus, I love this 6-cylinder engine on the Goldwing. And I have to say, the Goldwing, even though it is heavier, my goodness me, this water, outrageous. Even though it is heavier, is a little bit easier to live with, because Honda have equipped it with things like a forward and reverse creep mode that this doesn't have. But then you do spend an awful lot more for it. The Goldwing Tour, which is the one I've got, is 32 grand brand new, so it's half as much as this again. So when you're looking at value for money, and I'm now thinking my Gore-Tex kit was great value for money going through those puddles. When you're looking at value for money, then the RT definitely scores better than the Goldwing. But yeah, to just, you know, outright answer that question, because I know people are going to ask me, do I prefer the Goldwing? Yes, I prefer the Goldwing. But it's only a marginal preference. It's not as big as that price difference would have you think. Alrighty, that's it then for my videos on the RT for now. Hope you enjoyed that. And if you've not done so already, do hit that subscribe button. That way I can see you on the next video. I'm going to negotiate these floods as I go back to my house now. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Oh my word. Sorry about that, screamed like a schoolgirl there. Do apologise. Alright, catch you next time. I'm going to go and have a dry off. Till then, this has been the Missenden Flyer. Cheerio.